The offensive line played tremendous in this game in Happy Valley. This was not an easy offensive game. In fact, I could make the argument that next to Oregon, and maybe even more so than Oregon, not sure, wasn't there, this was the toughest game for the offensive line to play. I can make that argument that this was tougher because Donovan Jackson was starting at left tackle for the first time, and this was Carson Hinzman's first start since the start in Ann Arbor last year, and at a different position, mind you. So I can make that argument. 111,000 people in Beaver Stadium screaming. I can't. Did they have a false start? I don't think they did.
No.
I don't recall a holding penalty either.
Not that they weren't throwing too many
No.
flags this game.
They weren't throwing no. There was holding on both sides of the ball. By the way,
Yeah,
I
there
saw
was.
Penn State fans crying about
Oh,
holding.
yeah.
I remember quite a few times we were being held as well.
Yeah.
But I don't recall a false start, which, holding is subjective, you could say. There's holding on every play. We've heard that. I don't know, my whole life I've heard that. But false starts are not. you false start, right?
Right.
I can't remember one. So
We only had 2 penalties for 15 yards.
there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So the offensive line they deserve their flowers.
Except for Tegra, apparently.
Yeah, except for him apparently. But that's the coaching staff. That's not us. So let me present this question in a format that I would love to get your guys' opinion on. Last week, if you guys remember, Taraka made the statement to us in the chat. He said, this week we might see the best version of Ohio State's offensive line. I don't know if he's a prophet or if he just had a feeling that kicking Donovan Jackson out the left tackle would improve the offensive line this much and that Carson Hinzman was going to be a beast at left guard. I think he's right. That was impressive, which leads me to my question. What was Coach Fry and Ryan Day doing handcuffing this football team and potentially keeping us from being undefeated by keeping Carson Hinzman on the sideline as long as they have? Were they that butthurt by him going on a podcast and speaking truth about the coaching staff? Were they really that immature that they have handcuffed their own football team because of their pride? That's my question. Chris, you're shaking your head. Yes, you start.
I absolutely think that was the case. I think that they were so petty and holding such a grudge against Hinzman. I mean, you saw it most likely cost them the bowl game because it threw the whole offensive line into disarray during the bowl game. So why wouldn't we think they would do it this year? I think that, honestly, they were being extremely petty. And the only reason that they started Hinzman right now was out of complete desperation. And the bad part is, I mean, the great part for us, the fans, and for the team, but the bad part for the coaching fans is that it worked. They started him out of desperation, and it worked. So now, all those people that were questioning Ryan Day before are maybe not questioning him about the win that he just had, but now we switched over to questioning him about his judgment.
Follow-up statement. Did you hear Carson Hinzman's interview after the game?
I did not.
Go listen to this and tell me, how is this guy who was as humble and as eloquent speaking as he is and as positive, how is that guy deserving to be punished as long as he was? Explain this to me.
And I hear he did not say a whole lot.
I'm sorry?
I heard he did not say a whole lot, though.
He doesn't need to.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to. He could
His
have been
play
like,
spoke volumes.
he could have, with a microphone in his face, said, this could have been what you all saw from the beginning if they would have started me. He could have said that.
But
Well,
then
he could have, but they would have put him right back on the
yeah,
bench.
that's like he'd be back on the bench if he did that. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's sad because I think we saw it last year, and yes, it's a different positions for both, but I feel like him and Donovan Jackson haven't playing side by side last year at center and guard. I think there's a little bit of a chemistry build up between them
Sure.
already.
Sure. Yeah, and Nick Quinn, I did see what Donovan Jackson said. He said that our balls dropped. Is what he said. That's a direct
Yeah,
quote.
that was a
So
great comment.
yeah, but for the life of me, this frustrates me to no end, guys. No end.
I have a different take
Yeah,
on it.
All
I
right,
don't.
Corey, let
I
me
don't.
have it, man.
I
Let me
don't
have it.
totally agree with either of you. um, I think if it were like that, they literally just kept sitting them just for the comments he made on the podcast. I do think it happened for the bowl game for sure, because the whole we got to see Matt Jones at center was, yeah, right. But uh, I think he'd have transferred if he was literally just being punished this whole time for that. Throughout spring, throughout summer, throughout fall camp. I think I have heard from
but maybe
people
he
that
didn't know, Corey, that he was being punished like this until after the
I mean, what is he
camp was
stupid? Would
over.
he have figured it out? I mean, it's like if he's like, well, gee, I'm being treated
Well,
differently. It
he was
has to
getting
be.
reps in spring practice, and he was getting reps at
Yeah,
the
but he's also, from
summer.
what I understand, I got I mean, like everybody here, I got a couple friends who are somewhat close to the program who'd say he also battling nagging injuries here and there, left and right. So that kind of set him back a little bit. But not to mention, again, I think here's the thing I think they were trying to do with Zen Mokowski is just trying to switch one guy in and out versus now you're switching the whole line over and things like that. So I kind of get that approach to it, even though Zen obviously turned out to be bad, but there was no way Zen was that bad in practice or else he'd have never got to start. So I just don't think he'd have stuck around. And I don't think he would have not known what the issue was this whole time because he obviously knew what it was for the bowl game. I believe he would anyway.
Can, can I push back on you with 2 words
Sure.
about not starting somebody who may not be as good? Kyle McCord.
See, we haven't talked about that, but I don't agree with your takes on that either. But
Okay,
on
fair
the
enough.
Kyle McCord thing. But that being said, I just
That speaks volumes to me right there. Just saying.
okay.
No. What Mr. Nolan just put up
Oh, oh,
that speaks volumes to me right there.
Okay, Corey, I
mm,
appreciate you pushing back. I like this. This is what
mm,
I'm enjoying this immensely because I want to dig a little deeper. The post game press conference with Ryan Day, there was a
mm,
question about the offensive line's performance and specifically Carson Hinzman and why why they chose to go with this lineup, kicking Jackson out and moving
mm.
and um, going with Carson at left guard. And he replied with, "We thought the experience with Carson Hinzman would, given the fact we're going into Beaver Stadium, the experience would be more beneficial for this team."
Wouldn't it have been just as beneficial going in when you're at Oregon when Simmons goes down?
Bingo. That's what.
I'd agree, but was he healthy for Oregon? That's my question.
He's been healthy since about
Do we
week
know
2 or
that though,
3.
Chris? Do we know that?
We don't know that 100%.
That's what I'm saying.
My
I mean, I have
understanding is
no.
he's been healthy since about week 2, week 3.
He may have been. I don't know that. That's the only thing. I've been hearing that he has been battling nagging injuries. I mean, if I'll put it this way, if you guys are right and it's just literally been over a podcast this entire time, then fire everybody. I don't care what the record is. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard from a coaching staff. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying, holy crap, just get rid of him because that's if you haven't got. I mean, I understood for the bowl game you had to punish him to some degree because he's leaking out stuff about practice and stuff like that on a podcast. He really shouldn't be doing that. But that being said, okay, you got him out of the bowl game. You did what you did, or you punished him. Now move on from it. But for him, I don't know. I just have to believe if he felt like he was still there and getting punished, and for that one thing, I feel like he'd transfer because it's not like he wouldn't have opportunities. I mean, Wisconsin would take him in a heartbeat, for example.
Oh
So
yeah, he's
uh,
from Wisconsin.
exactly.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. Two things. Not that this is the only reason why you support somebody. Okay, it's not. Don't misconstrue what I'm about to say.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I enjoy it because I'm a man of faith.
Mm-hmm.
I saw his interview with that Christian organization, and that was released this week. I'm sure the
Yeah, I saw
interview
that
was
too. Yep.
before this week, but it was released this week. Okay, and I thought it was very interesting that they released that portion the week that it was rumored he was going to get the start. But I digress.
Yeah, it might
It's
be.
obvious to me that the young man has learned some things in his
Mm-hmm.
life and that this was a learning lesson, okay? And that could be one of the reasons why he decided to stick it out and not go back to Wisconsin was he felt like this is where after some prayer he felt the Lord led him to stay in Columbus. I don't know. Could be. It'd be a great question to ask him in the offseason. I don't know. But I'm
But
just
he may never
saying
go on a podcast again.
what he was obviously allowed to go on that one, okay? Um,
What
but
are
I'm
you
just
gonna? Are you gonna tell Jesus no?
He died for you, Eric.
That's
yes,
right.
he did. And I'm thankful for that every single day, and I try to live my life since he gave me his. But my point is this. My point is this. There are two men you never say no to: Jesus and Jim Tressel. Okay, that's how it goes. But you have to you have to look that that man that I'm hearing doing those interviews.
Mm-hmm.
That man, how do you sit that man for that long if it's because of what he said on a podcast? You might be right, Corey. There had to be something else beyond just that. And if it's
Yeah.
not, again, this is another strike to Justin Fry for mismanaging his room.
Well, I agree, but you see what Justin Fry and Hinzman did after the game, right? There's a video of Justin Fry sitting between Josh Fryer and Carson Hinzman. I'm not going to repeat what he said because it's a family friendly show, but I bleeping love you right in his ear, and then he said it to both of them. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe the Hinzman had a maturity problem or whatever, and you got a small snippet of it from the podcast, and it was prolonging for a long time. They said we got to get this kid right, and maybe the recent move to Christ from most of the team moved him to maturity. Like I said, I'm kind of combining theories now. Uh, and then finally they said, okay, you're ready now. You're ready to come back into the lineup. I don't know. I'm having a hard time believing that it was just over a couple comments on a podcast that he's been in the doghouse this long.
I think you are convincing me that you're right about this, Corey. I
Not
think
me.
you're con- I think you're convincing me. By the way, DK, if we put that on a shirt, it needs to be on a sweater vest, and that thing might sell hot like hotcakes. um, why not, Chris? Are you're just that much
Your
disdain in the
bromance,
coaching staff?
as far as why I don't agree. Yeah, well, this coaching staff has not shown itself to make the best decisions over time. It's shown itself to be petty at times. Just look at what was going on between Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles.
Yeah, which seemed to be cleaned up this week,
It
like
did.
clearly,
Even Nebraska seemed more cleaned up. Yeah, they
slightly
definitely.
more, but
I believe there are a lot of petty people with huge egos running this team, and it got in the way of common sense. So
Bobby Mack brings up another good point.
I mean, there's a point to that to say, yeah, they don't have another center besides Hinzman.
but
That's
you know what? You could kick him back into center if there's an injury while still getting him playing time at guard so that he's on the field getting game reps.
if he's healthy. If he's also battling nagging injuries, and you got your backup center who's battling injuries, I mean, it's a balancing act. I mean, I agree he should be on the field at least right now for sure. There's no question. And if healthy, he should be on the field without question. Um, I just don't know what his history injury is. I've been hearing rumors here and there. Combined with possible maturity issues from last year, I don't know. But I'm from here on out, I just got to struggle with just a couple comments on a podcast, and they're just like, nope, we're not playing you, and he just sticks around.
And I think Lee Rachel is absolutely onto something right here. And I think that was a big reason that this team came out with a victory yesterday.
Yeah, I know Lee. Good dude. Good to see you, Lee. Played football, Mansfield area, I believe, if I remember correctly. Nick Quint, you son of a gun. That's a jab at me. I love it. I love our chat. They're so good. All right. Last question then. As someone asked it earlier, I don't remember who it was. Might have been Mika. And if it's not, I apologize. We keep this lineup going forward, right? It has to
You
stay the
have
same.
to. You have to.
It'd be criminal not to. It'd be like, fire him now. What are you doing? Going back to Zen? No. It's got to be. Carson Hinzman had such an amazing game. He's one of the like. I agree with Chris giving him the player of the game for the offense. I mean, he's one of the catalysts that allowed that run game. I think having Hinzman in there allows them to have that offensive identity that I think they've wanted the entire year, and being a run first team.
Strike 34 on Fry. Devin's keeping track. Jeez. Yeah,
Only 34
yeah.
This year.
this year. Oh, fair point. Okay.
Yeah. Ryan Day's beard agrees. We go with this lineup the rest of the way forward. When Ryan Day's beard speaks, hopefully Ryan Day's brain listens to the beard. Because I think this is definitely the lineup we go with. Bobby Mack agrees 100%. We stay with this lineup moving forward. If they kick Donovan Jackson back in, and we see Zen Mikowski at left tackle against Purdue, I think the fan base riots.
Fire them all. I'm
I
serious.
think they riot.
You thought 111,000 were vicious on James Franklin.
Yeah.
Wait to see what happens if they tried that versus Purdue and Columbus.
Donald Hoffer, what's the deal with the shade towards Tegra on the after game report card? We don't know.
Well, I've been watching the chat, and I think it was Dev said that Tegra had some issues where he missed some assignments.
I thought he went on a podcast or something.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It wasn't this one.
That would have been an 8-game suspension, though.
Oh my gosh.